Today on CityCast Philly, the cheesesteak is a Philadelphia icon, and we all have strong opinions on who we think makes the best in town. After taste testing some of the city's most revered cheesesteaks, I think I'm finally ready to share my top 3 favorites and how I got there. Our CityCast content director and sandwich enthusiast, Wil Fulton, is here to help me break down my findings. It's Thursday, September 26th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about.
Hello. Well, I am not Trenae Nuri, to state the obvious. My name is Wil Fulton. I'm one of CityCast content directors. And I'm jumping on the mic today because Trenae, who usually asks the questions around here, is actually here to give us some answers on her favorite cheesesteaks in the city. What's up, Trenae? How does it feel to be a guest on your own show?
Oh, this is different.
I'm sure. It's like, when you sometimes ride passenger in a car that you're used to driving and it's like a really weird experience. It's probably what you're feeling right now a little bit.
Yes, but this is all about cheesesteak, so it's going to be fun.
Exactly. Well, I do want to start off with a more existential cheesesteak question. So Helen Rosner, who's a food writer for The New Yorker, she was talking pretty recently about what makes a perfect sandwich. And she made this comment that sandwiches are the perfect physical embodiment of this philosophical principle called Gestalt, which basically means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which is, it's really funny to think about that when we're talking about sandwiches.
So deep.
It is so deep, but it's also so true because I do feel like the best sandwiches live up to that notion. And I think especially in this case, the ingredients here are so basic. It's meat, it's cheese, it's bread, onions. It's really basic, right? But how you arrange them, how you manipulate the space, it makes something that transcends its parts, and it's something new. It's really beautiful, Trenae. It almost brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
You're not the first person in Philly to rank cheesesteaks, and you definitely won't be the last. So as a Philadelphian, and all that stuff in mind about the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, what does the word best even mean to you when it comes to cheesesteaks?
That is a great question. Best. It's all those things, right? It's having a great sandwich, but also I'm really big at like customer service too. So how did you make me feel when I ordered this sandwich? How easy was it for me to park at your restaurant? Did you have a place for me to sit down and eat the cheesesteak? And yeah, just like the nostalgia too, because I was raised in this city and, you talked about like a sandwich that kind of brings a tear to your eye. And I definitely feel like in this journey, there was one sandwich that did that.
Ooh, a sandwich so good, it'll make you cry. You should put that on a billboard in downtown Philly. That's so interesting. You brought up all the other aspects, the kind of cheesesteak lore, how it makes you feel, these memories. It's funny. I used to do a bit of food writing, and I loved to put this very serious lens on things that were kind of silly. I mean, cheesesteaks are hoagies. They're sandwiches, but I don't need to tell you that people really care about them in Philly. I feel like every Philadelphian I've ever known has an extremely intense opinion about their favorite cheesesteak spot, which makes this so fun. So you worked with a couple of food writers to make a rubric. You source spots from your own experience and listeners and readers and some expert picks. You tried a couple dozen of what I guess are commonly known as the top tier cheesesteak spots in town, the heavy hitters. It's not like, oh, we found a secret cheesesteak spot that only locals know. Your Max's, Jim's, John's, D'Alessandro's, Pat's, Geno's. Can you just give an overview, the brass tacks, about how you went about this and how you determined what makes a great cheesesteak? Because you got a little scientific with it.
Yeah, so I made a spreadsheet. It has 11 columns.
Okay.
Each column has a different category, like what's the vibe? Describe the meat, the cheese, the onions. Do we need condiments or not? And those X factors, like, is this a cash-only business? I made this list with the help of Dave Wes, our CityCast Philly food contributor, and Carolyn Wyman, who wrote a book all about the Philadelphia cheesesteak. And it seems like overkill, but I really wanted to be thorough in how I rated these places.
Are you just whiz or in provolone, or do you think it's okay to venture outside of the kind of classic cheeses?
No, that
Okay.
we cannot.
Okay.
That is going to be like no. I'm going to have to say, put my foot down and say no. Do not try any other cheese other than the three main cheeses that were at these spots. And that was American cheese or Cooper Sharp, which
Hmm.
really blew my mind because I did not have that growing up. So when I ate the Cooper Sharp American cheese on my cheesesteaks, that was like, ooh, damn, this is good. The whiz, that's not my preference, but I understand and I can respect that. And then provolone is something that I grew up with. And I feel like that cheese also melts really well in a cheesesteak. And I say go for it.
Yeah, I'm more of a provolone person myself, but great call. You have to be a purist sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some interesting stuff in there because I feel like you don't want the bread to be soggy, but also you do want a little bit of that juice. So it's kind of like a push and pull right there.
Yeah.
And in terms of cleanliness, I don't know. You obviously don't want things to be unsanitary, but a little bit of grime and a little bit of dirt, those are usually the best sandwich shops, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
So it's finding that middle ground. Well, I'm anxious to hear about your favorite spots that you determined, by weighing all those different categories. But before we do that, I want to break it down a little bit and give out some minor awards at some places for their individual contributions to the Philly cheesesteak universe.
Ooh, I like this.
Thank you. Let's call these maybe the steakies.
The steakies!
So first up, the Gluten Lovers Award for Best Bread. What's your take?
Best bread. It's got to go to Angelo's in South Philly.
Okay.
It was actually something I didn't expect. It was crispy, crunchy. I just bit into it and it just like, like amazing.
The standard is the kind of Amoroso bakery roll, right?
Right.
Or a variation of it, or riff on it. Fantastic. As you can tell, I'm not a Philadelphian, which is why I need help from you, really, to suss this stuff out. All right, so next award, the Gristle Award for Best Overall Meat. What does that go to?
Meat. This is tough.
Obviously.
Because in this journey and from the conversation I had on Monday with Dave Wes, our CityCast Philly food contributor, and Frank Oliveri, who's the owner of Pat's King of Steaks, they kind of enlightened me that there are definitely two different styles of cheesesteaks that you might find in Philly. So you might find a cheesesteak with slabs of meat, like at Pat's or Gino's, but some places like Max's and D'Alessandro's have chopped meat. So I think in this case, the winner I would choose is going to be someone who serves more of a chop style. Jim South.
Okay.
I think Jim South had the best meat.
What was it like?
It was chopped. It was seasoned. I didn't really have to put any extra stuff on it.
Yeah, I've actually been to Jim South, and it's for lack of a better word, that sandwich was very it was very damp. It was very wet. It had a lot going on. It's kind of like, I grew up in New Jersey, right? But closer to New York, not the Philly-centric part of New Jersey. And Jim's, to me, it was delicious, and it felt a lot like the cheesesteaks that I would see in like pizza shop menus, kind of like the platonic ideal of what I remember a cheesesteak being. So that's a great pick. All right, so the next award, the Moms Here Award for the best spot to bring an out-of-towner. Where are you bringing guests?
Yes. Let's give this to Max's.
Okay.
Up in North Philly. And I will say Max's because it's the most you can share with someone. Their rolls are ridiculously long. So I went to Max's at night. And Max's is definitely like the spot, like after you did all of the like walking to the Liberty Bell and the Rocky Steps, like go to Max's like kind of like towards the end of your evening. Split. You could even split a half of a cheesesteak from them. But the whole cheesesteak, I think it's like a 2-foot roll.
Yikes.
Which is insane. So yeah, that's a good spot for out-of-towners.
That's great. You bring a friend, maybe you can even Lady in the Trampet where you both start on one side and eat and meet in the middle, which is what I like to do when people come to town. Uh, all right, next award. This is more about vibe, right? It's the Coffee Shops Are Overrated award for the best place to just hang out. I don't know, maybe loiter, do some work. I don't know if you tested the Wi-Fi in these places, Trenae. But yeah, where would you like to hang out? What's a fun, friendly vibe?
That's funny. I definitely did not notice like Wi-Fi capabilities, but I would love to spend more time at Chubby's. Chubby's is up in Roxborough, and I say that because they had a bar inside.
Ooh.
So you could order your food. They had cheesesteaks and they had other food too. So if you wanted fries or cheese fries, or if you wanted some beer, some drinks, or soda and some water, whatever, you could just stay there and watch a game or something. So I feel like they had a really cool vibe.
I dig that. Well, speaking of alcohol, and last but certainly not least out of our awards, all right, this is the citywide special Morning After Award for the best cheesesteak to kill your hangover.
Actually, Will, cheesesteaks in general, like all of them, are just perfect hangover cures. They're greasy and filling and should just soak up all that alcohol. You can't go wrong.
Yes, okay, that's a good call. Anything super greasy.
Yeah.
I am more of a bacon, egg, and cheese guy, but you're in Philly, so I totally get it. Anyway, we're going to take a very quick break, but when we come back, Trenae's top 3 cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. Stick around.
Hey, it's Trenae. If you've been listening to CityCast Philly, you know that I've been on a mission to find the best, most iconic cheesesteak in all of Philadelphia. I ate so many cheesesteaks, y'all. Not that I'm complaining. And this week, I'm finally ready to share my findings. But I also want to tell you about the secret weapon in my months-long cheesesteak quest. Since I've been running all over town taste testing steaks, I really needed some footwear that was super comfortable, high quality, and obviously made me look good in every setting, even standing in line at gyms. So I visited the new Tacova store at the King of Prussia Mall to pick up a pair of cowgirl boots. And let me tell you something, I literally might not ever take these off my feet again. The second I walked into the Tacova store, I felt totally taken care of. I'll admit, I'm a little new to Western wear, but the staff there walked me through a fitting, answered all my questions, and even gave me a can of beer while I tried on my boots. I walked out with a handmade pair of suede Annies, and right out of the box, they felt comfortable enough to wear every day. They definitely convinced this city girl to swap out her sneakers for some cowgirl boots. I've been wearing them to run to the grocery store, when I need to stand on my feet for hours cheering on my son's football team. And I even rocked them at a tailgate last Sunday. Go Birds! So, as I've been walking miles around South Philly, on South Street, in West and up in Roxborough, trying all the cheesesteaks, these boots have given me the boost I needed to finish my quest. So whether you want to take your own Philly cheesesteak crawl or just need a new look for fall, head to your Tacova store at the King of Prussia Mall or visit tacovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com to pick up some new boots and plenty of other high-quality Western wear too. I promise you'll find some boots that are right for you. So go visit your Tacova store today. And remember, don't go gently.
All right, Trenae, so before we talk about your favorite spots, I actually want to zag a little bit and ask if there was a place that maybe you were looking forward to, maybe you have fond memories of, but when you started this project, you revisited and it did not live up to the hype. Maybe you were a little disappointed.
Yeah, so everyone kept telling me to go to D'Alessandro's up in Roxborough, which is across the street, right across the street from Chubby's. I went to D'Alessandro's before going to Chubby's because everyone told me, go to D'Alessandro's, go to D'Alessandro's. So I was like, all right, I'll go. Again, it was like one of those experiences where it's like you kind of just have to hurry up and know what you want, know how to order. And then I did appreciate just like there was a separate window. They had outdoor seating. So again, I was able to eat the sandwich right away. Great soft bread, fried onions, American cheese. But I just wasn't as impressed with the meat. And I think that threw me off. But I did love, they had large chopped fried onions.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, whoa, I like this. But yeah, I wasn't as impressed. Or I was like, this is what everyone's talking about?
I have been to D'Alessandro's, and I completely agree. It was one that everyone, so many people I talked to were like, this is the best one. It's where you should start if you want to eat a cheesesteak. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the meat was very finely chopped. I definitely remember those big chunks of onions you're talking about, which I loved. But I actually think it was a little dry for me.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I didn't put ketchup on it until the end because I wanted to kind of taste it in its pure form.
Mm-hmm.
But I did remember that, and you want that juice when you eat a cheesesteak. You want that a little bit. I hate this word, but it does need to be a little bit moist. What I will say is there was a woman there who literally had her luggage with her. She came straight from the airport, and she's like, "I'm from Philly. This is the first place I go when I go back to town." So that that means something.
Yeah, that's special.
So I like saying
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So let's do your top 3 choices, your
Mm.
favorite cheesesteak spots in Philly, and I'll do you a favor. I'll give you one honorable mention that maybe just missed your top 3.
Let's start with honorable mention. Honorable mention, I'm gonna give to Chubby's.
Okay.
By the time I got to eat my Chubby's cheesesteak, the bread was soft. It was a bit soggy in the wrapping, but it still was good. The meat was chopped and it just had more flavor and it was just more juicy compared to the spot across the street. One of my favorite parts of this cheesesteak is that the onions were like a thick cut. They were chunky and just melted in my mouth because the onions were caramelized. And just to note, if you do go there, they accept all forms of payment, but you do have to pay a little bit extra if you're using a card. So just carry cash when you get there.
Excellent. Okay. So then the real deal, your top 3. Where are we
Top
starting? What's
3.
number 3?
Okay. 3, I'm giving it to Angelo's.
Okay.
And Angelo's was the first place I went to in this journey. And I was just blown away. So I'm thinking, oh, wow, like all these cheesesteaks are going to taste like this because this is amazing. It was super fun. However, I just didn't understand how to order it at first. So I went to Angelo's and I saw a bunch of people just standing outside. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go to a window. No. So I actually parked my car, which it kind of was hard because it's South Philly. So the parking is very limited. I actually stood behind a man and I stood there and he's like, wait a minute. Do you think that this is the line? And I'm like, yeah, right. He's like, oh no, you actually go inside. I'm like, oh, okay. I go inside and it's very, very tight. This is even probably tighter than Chubby's.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a whole operation there. They ask you for your name, your phone number, cash only. They had an ATM there. And yeah, I ordered my cheesesteak and I also got a tomato pie for my kid.
It's a very Philly meal.
Yeah.
Right there. All the Philly food groups.
So I started setting up my camera to document this whole experience. And I ended up having a conversation with a guy who told me stories about how Angelo's used to get their bread from a bakery at the top of the block, Sarcone's Bakery.
I love how you're including all these intangibles about space and people and stories in this list. It really adds to the experience, as I can attest to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so number 2, your second favorite cheesesteak spot,
my second
the silver
favorite.
medal, the runner-up.
John's roast pork
Yes.
is freaking amazing.
Yes.
I sat in the car while eating this and just was speechless. You know when food is good when you don't say anything. You just are like, I loved everything about it. I loved the bread, super soft, and it was slightly greasy, and the meat was chopped and lightly seasoned. The cheese was gooey. That's what I think made this one really great. And there was tons of fried onions. They were not skimpy on it, which I feel like a lot of the places I've been to, they go hard on the fried onions. The fried onions are definitely important.
Yeah.
This one, and similar to Angelo's, I felt like I didn't need any condiments. I don't think you need the ketchup or the sweet or hot peppers. It's just straight up good. Now, John's did have seating available. It is outside seating. So if it is like bad weather, just eat this thing in your car. There is parking available because it's like in this like small like shack thing down in South Philly. And I went during like the lunch hour rush. So it was busy. There was like two windows, but it was more so like you order in one and then you pick up at the other one. They have a bunch of other things that you can order. You don't have to just order cheesesteaks. And the staff, they were so friendly. So it was great.
Absolutely. That's a great place. I think that's my favorite cheesesteak I've ever tried in Philly. I actually, to tell you a quick story about John's, I actually got to interview the owner, John Bucci Jr., I think.
Oh, wow.
And the place is very small. His office is actually in kind of like a shed behind the restaurants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I because there's no space in there. I went in there to talk to him. His two little dogs were like jumping all over me. There was paper and just crap everywhere. And actually, before we started talking, he had an envelope on his desk, and he was like, "If you don't mind, I just got these photos. I found a few undeveloped photo rolls in my stuff in my storage. These are from like the late '80s. I have no idea what's on them. And do you mind if I just take a look really quickly?" And I was like, "Of course, no, I would love to look with you." And he went through these photos. They were of his parents who had passed, all these shots from inside of John's decades ago. He saw like his old car that he had, I guess, when he was younger. It showed all of these old customers he remembered. And he started, getting emotional and tearing up and reflecting on how much the place and his steaks mean to him and his people. And it was just such a great moment because I feel like these cheesesteak places, that's what they mean to people. They're nostalgia and they're legends. They've been around for decades. People have grown up on them. And
yeah,
he actually, he also told me that one of his customers was literally buried with one of his sandwiches. I think it was one of his roast pork. I swear, he was like, I drove down a couple hours to drop off a sandwich at a funeral. So that just added to the lore for me. But you're right. The actual sandwich was just, it was top tier. It was delicious. It was everything I wanted a cheesesteak to be. But so I definitely second that one. Well, John's is tough to beat. So I'm super curious now, what's your favorite cheesesteak? What's your conclusion? What's your number one?
This was tough. This was very tough, but putting all of the things that, I was grading this sandwich on, thinking of just, the construction of this cheesesteak, the vibes of the restaurant, everything has to go to Jim's South on South Street. Jim's South was the place that I was introduced as like a teenage girl, getting to like travel to South Street, for the first time, getting that independence. And this is before they had the fire. It was,
which was pretty recent, right? That kind of
pretty recent, yes.
Yeah.
But before, it was like long lines, wrapped around the building. You could eat at Jim's, but you had to go upstairs and find a seat if you could find it. But since they reopened, I went back and there's so many improvements to this place. They've got like art and more places where you can eat on the first level. I went like on a Friday afternoon, like during the lunch rush, stood in line like everyone else, and I ordered my cheesesteak. I sat down at a table and I just was speechless. The meat was flavorful. The meat to bread ratio worked really well. It was hot. The onions were just like pouring out of the sandwich. When I bit into it, all the juices of the meat just like dripped down my arm. It was just so good. Do you remember that movie Ratatouille and the scene when the food critic takes a bite and then there's like this instant zoom into his eye, which takes us to this memory of the first time he ever had Ratatouille? That was the experience I had when I sat at Jim's. It just took me back to my teenage years, that first time I ate into a Jim's South cheesesteak. I was still kind of like chewing that last like bit of sandwich when I like got up, and literally this guy just like meets me like on the sidewalk and he's like, "Is it as good as it's always been?" And I'm like, yeah, it is. And like, that was like my teary moment when it was just like, yeah, this cheesesteak is so special to me. It is because of my childhood. It is because it was actually good. It is because I was treated with respect when I came in. It is Philly.
That's beautiful, Trenae. I'm getting emotional over here too.
Yeah.
Who knew? Well, cheesesteaks do bring a lot of people together. But what do you think cheesesteaks mean to Philadelphia right now?
So you know how like Jerry Springer used to have, all right, here are my final thoughts. It's like,
Of course.
yes, okay.
What are your final thoughts on cheesesteaks, please?
So first and foremost, it's in our blood. From the conversations I had with Frank Oliveri, who's the 4th generation owner of Pat's King of Steaks, which gets credited for inventing this iconic sandwich.
Yeah.
To the guy I was having a conversation with while I'm down at Angelo's, no one can take this experience and this sandwich from us. So even if you go to a different region in the country, it's just not going to be the same. I just also want you to just imagine how long the cheesesteak has survived its reputation. It's been decades. Despite all the ideas and ways people have remixed the original steak sandwich, it's still Philly's signature food. It's a Philly thing. And really, it's the true meaning of brotherly love and sisterly affection. This is a really, really good sandwich. And I want you to think of a cheesesteak as tasting what Philly's supposed to taste like. It's where you'll find the true heart and soul of the city. This is a really good sandwich, and I will keep eating them because I'm a forever Philadelphian. I'm just going to take a break right now, and I'll come back.
That makes sense. Take a little tolerance break and then come back, and you will appreciate cheesesteaks even more. Well, Trenae, this was all amazing. I appreciate you doing all this hard work on our listeners and readers' behalf. And if you're hungry for more cheesesteak coverage, we have so much. The best vegan cheesesteaks, if it's still Philly's signature food, it's all over our website, philly.citycast.fm, and in Hey Philly, our excellent daily newsletter. Trenae, thanks so much for schooling me, a New Yorker, on this Philly tradition. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks, Will. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about my cheesesteak findings, tell a friend so y'all can order one. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the Friday News Roundup. Bye.